Yes, I'm joined by Susan Kramer for the Liberal Democrats and Douglas Carswell for UKIP. Thank you both for joining us. Susan Kramer, first of all, the rabbit out of the hat, the living wage. Would the Liberal Democrats have signed off on this budget?
Well, we're great supporters of the living wage, but we still have a lot of reservations about this budget. I mean, we're going to have to work through that's how this trades off against working tax cuts. We knew we'd have to make some welfare cuts, but it's 4 more years of austerity, and we thought the coalition agreed we could basically take this out 2, and we didn't need to go out 4. There are also some clear losers, and one of those are young people. The living wage doesn't seem to apply to the under 25s. And when you look at the fact they're not going to get housing benefits, so if they're coming out of care, I don't know whose floor they sleep on. They're trying to move to an area where there are jobs available away from home. I don't know quite how they cope. So there are a lot of things happening to young people that are going to be pretty harsh. And then again, there's some obvious winners, which are people who own houses worth £1 million. That wouldn't have been a priority for us.
It seems to be a much rosier picture than the one that was drawn in the budget in March, which obviously was something that the Liberal Democrats were signed up to. The Office for Budget Responsibility says the government has loosened fiscal consolidation considerably, which translates to £83 billion of extra expenditure over the next 5 years. Would that have helped the Liberal Democrats if there'd been a budget like this back in March?
Well, as I say, I think we would have looked at a different weighting to a budget. We've said it's really important that everybody carries the burdens. We need to understand what's happened when you look at the welfare cuts. And as I say, groups like young people seem to have been really singled out
but
for
I'm
a very
just
big
talking
part
about
of
the
this
fact
burden.
that the purse strings seem to have been loosened off. Would that have helped the Liberal Democrats?
I don't know if it would have helped us. All I can tell you is that we had, we're tough. So we want to build towards a financial security, but we recognise that we have pretty much got in place a plan that got us to financial stability, and we would be able to actually loosen the purse strings a little bit more after that. I haven't done the numbers to take a look and compare one against the other, quite frankly, but certainly we're hoping that this turns out to be one that works for people, but I have some real doubts, and we've got to go through the details. And by the way, the living wage is not being carried on a fiscal side, this is falling on businesses.
Douglas Carswell, UKIP was squarely behind a programme of austerity. What do you make of this budget?
I think there's a lot in this budget that we can support. I particularly like the idea of raising the tax threshold to £11,000. We've got to support that. It's lifted straight out of UKIP's manifesto. I really like the idea of a fiscal charter. We must never have a return to Ed Ball's economics, and I think it's really important that we enshrine that responsibility. But I've got a couple of reservations. The idea of fixing or freezing public sector pay increases by 1% for the next 4 years. I don't think that if the economy develops the way the Chancellor hopes it is, that's going to be sustainable.
You think that's too generous?
No, on the contrary, I think if the economy is growing, if average wages are increasing, it's going to become politically unsustainable to say to people who work in the public sector, look, we don't value you, we're not going to allow you to have an increase in line with inflation. But, one of the extraordinary things is Gordon Brown left us a legacy where big corporations were able to use the tax credit system to pay their staff ridiculously low wages. And if by raising the minimum wage to £9 by 2020, and at the same time reforming the tax credit system and taking it back to what it was supposed to be, if we can unravel that disastrous Gordon Brown legacy, that's something I'm going to support.
How does something like that square with free market principles, though, which
well, there's
is
free
something
market.
that
There's
UKIP
nothing
would
free,
be
absolutely
behind?
nothing free market about big parasitical corporations using taxpayer money through the tax credit system to subsidise their payroll.
But the minimum wage wasn't the government telling companies what they should pay its workers. The living wage is going to be that.
If an employer was to come to me and to say, look, this obligation to pay £9 to people over the age of 25 by 2020 is going to have an impact on me, my question to them would be, how many people on your payroll are already forced to claim public money through the tax credit system? We've got to unravel this disastrous system that Gordon Brown created. It's not a free market system that Gordon Brown put in place. It's allowing big corporations to use the taxpayer to subsidise their payroll, and that's wrong.
But there is an issue for small businesses, and I think it's an important one. And I had expected, because I thought something like this might be happening, that the government would, the Chancellor would provide more support to small businesses to pick up the living wage. Most big businesses
corporation tax is being cut.
It is being cut.
Which is great.
We're out of time.
For small businesses, are still going to be left with a lot of
Susan Kramer and Douglas Carswell, thank you very much.